Take a look at this computer. This is the last time you're going to see this computer like this. Hey guys, how you doing? Joe here. And I wanted to just kind of make a video because this computer is going bye-bye. It's acting up too much. It's starting to die. And again, nobody's fault but the idiot behind the camera. That would be Joe. That guy. And I sold it off while it still works. Most beautiful Aston ever. And I sold it off because I can keep trying to keep it on life support, or I can sell it to somebody that could possibly fix it. Now let's talk about what's happened since the bad overclocks. And this is kind of a recap. If you need to watch the videos, I'll put cards up here. You can't do them that fast, but you know what I mean. Just click on the annotations or the card drop down here and you'll be able to see them. But it started when I took an i7-930 and overclocked it to 4.33 gigahertz. During that overclock, something bad happened and too much voltage went through the motherboard, either through some kind of spike, not 100% sure why. Typically when you change voltage on a overclock for the CPU, it will shut down the system and then restart the system. Well, just like starting a car, if you pay attention when you start your car, the engine revs a little bit higher than normal before coming back down to idle. So what I'm thinking is that when I set it to 4.33 gigahertz and left the voltage on auto, I think it slapped a little bit too much voltage through the motherboard, and the motherboard did what it could to keep itself alive in that it fried the audio chip and damaged the top PCIe slot. I'm not sure how power is diverted on an old x58 motherboard, because you know most computer motherboards nowadays just have a chipset and then power delivery up top, where this has a north bridge, a south bridge, and power delivery. So somewhere in that boot process it spiked power and damaged some componentry. Now, I got it working. I wound up figuring out how to get my graphics cards working by dropping a slot down, and I got everything working. But over the last couple of weeks, what am I, freaking Northeastern? I noticed that the computer would crash sometimes under heavy load, so I then again started diagnosing stuff, and my graphics cards weren't running right, so I started messing with the power delivery on there, got that sorted out, and it was still crashing. But if I tested the graphics cards separately, and I have a SLI profile for superposition benchmark, so it can actually test in superposition benchmark, which puts more stress on the GPUs than even the Valley benchmark does, it ran a 30-minute stress test 6 times without crashing. 6 times in a row. I just kept restarting the stress test. So I started thinking, well, maybe it has something to do with the voltage for the overclock on the 5675. So I backed the 5675's voltage down from 1.48 to 1.39. Didn't matter, it was still crashing out. So then I ran a CPU stress test for about 6 hours, and that one passed no problem. So it turns out that those components by themselves, if you're only stressing one or the other, was fine. Okay, what next? Well, then we move over to the RAM. So I started testing the RAM DIMMs that I have, and as you can see, there's only 3 in the computer right now because that's still 16 gigabytes. But I was testing it, and with just the 8 gig stick, which is the one on the end, it was running fine. So then I started testing it in each slot, and that was fine. And then I started testing all the various RAM sticks I have. And, you know, this isn't even all of them, but those are all DDR3. And the only thing I could come up with was that because I was using multiplier overclock, it was overclocking the RAM automatically. So at 4.55 gigahertz or 4.6 gigahertz where I normally was running it, it was running the RAM at 1874, so a little bit over 1866. This RAM is 1866 megahertz RAM, but it's typically defaults to 1333 because this is an old x58 motherboard. Its stock is 1333, and it supposedly, with all the current BIOS on it, can support 1866, but this is a 7 8-year-old motherboard at the newest. This could be a 2009 release motherboard. So I backed the overclock down to 1333 megahertz, and the computer ran fine, but it's starting to act up again. So maybe something in the power delivery is bad. Maybe some of the damage is finally just deteriorating more of the traces on the motherboard. Not sure, but either way, I'm getting rid of that motherboard so that I can recoup some of my money and move on to whatever the next setup is. So I have to look on Craigslist once I get paid for this motherboard from my guy and see what I can find out there. So the next time you see it, it will be a little bit different because I'll have to change tubing, of course, and I'll fix all this weird angled tubing crap because I was out of tubing when I did it. And who knows, maybe I'll add an actual drain plug in there, so that'll be nice. And yeah, so just a quick update. I did film another health update, but I'm waiting to meet with my doctor so I can have an official diagnosis of what I already know. And once we're done with that, then we'll publish that video. So hope you had a good 4th of July. Don't forget to subscribe. Click over here to watch something else, and I'll talk to you later.